This is my audience of 3. You guys can sit down now. So, have you ever wondered if there's a species that lived a million years ago that is still alive today? One of the first things you might think of is a bird and how closely related they are to dinosaurs. But in order to actually get as close to a living fossil as possible, would be to look in the water. So, there are a few species you might think of, like coelacanths or nautilus, as preservations of the past, but the species we'll be focusing on specifically today would be the sturgeon, as said by the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. Fossil records from over 120 million years ago indicate or have preserved the elongated torpedo-shaped body of a sturgeon from a time on Earth when the Earth consisted of only 2 continents instead of the 7 that we know today.
Oh.
So today we'll be talking about sturgeon, as well as their history and their connections to culture, evolution, and the economy. So this is a sturgeon. They are a fish with a lot of unique characteristics. So they are native to the northern hemisphere, meaning they live in the North American continent in countries like Canada and the northern United States, as well as Eurasia, which includes China and Russia. So, they are a very old species of fish, dating around back to the mid-Jurassic period. They are well known for their bony plates and their gray color. As you can see, their body is very rigid, and they're very sturdy fish. So their size, typically species can get to about 2 to 3 meters, which means about 7 to 10 feet, but there is a small chance of them, and it's not as common, but there's a chance of them growing to be as big as 26.2 feet or 8 meters.
Wow.
You can see here how the man is practically dwarfed by how large the fish is, and it's a very old fish if it is that large. But their unique appearance is not just limited to their uniqueness is not just limited to their appearance. It actually applies to their evolution as well. So, the way that sturgeons have evolved is very different from their fishy peers. So, according to the University of Michigan, they have evolved at a very fast rate compared to other fish. So, when you think of the 2 ways that a fish can evolve, first would be the gar, and gars are a species that has evolved very slowly, and thus the variation among their species size and anatomy is practically the same. When you see a gar, it's going to look like this fish.
Wow!
Versus the salmon family, which consists of trout, whitefish, salmon, and char, you wouldn't consider any of them to be the same fish species. They're all different, so they have evolved very fast and have they have very large differences in size and anatomy compared to the gar. Sturgeon, however, have a special place because there aren't very many of them, but the difference in their sizes and anatomy is very large. So if you look, the Atlantic sturgeon is very different than the Russian sturgeon, where the Russian sturgeon is longer, while the Atlantic sturgeon is more compact, compared to the Alabama sturgeon, which is way more squished down compared to any of these other sturgeons. They all have their own unique features, but at the end of the day, they're all considered sturgeon.
Oh.
So, but their place in evolution is not the only. Not only do sturgeons have a unique place in evolution, but the species also has a special place in culture and anatomy. They have a very special place in human affairs. So, the lake sturgeon specifically is a very important fish to the indigenous cultures of North America, specifically to Canada. And according to many of the stories that have been told about their homes in pre-colonial times, sturgeon used to be so abundant that basically you can walk across a river because there were so many of them. In modern times there aren't as many sturgeon, and because of this and how beloved the fish is among these communities, they have come together in order to help the species come back to their former glory under the Lower Nelson River Lake Sturgeon Stewardship Agreement. And here is the map of the lake sturgeon that they specifically are protecting. Is Manitoba, Canada, and you can see how wide of an area it is and exactly how many nations there are trying to help these sturgeon replenish their numbers. And you can see the areas of their where they're working. But when they did have as many sturgeons as the environment provided them, they were a prized food, and so were the eggs of the food. They were so prized to the point where they wouldn't feed them to their dogs because of just how important they were. And every part of the fish was used, so their meat was used for foods like soup, while things like their intestines, the oil from the fish's intestines, were actually used as cures to illnesses like sore throats.
Wow.
But further than that, sturgeon are well known globally because of their eggs, also known as caviar, and it is an extremely expensive luxury food, so, and has a very big pull in the global economy. There are several grades of caviar, and these grades typically are classified dependent on the species of the fish. In the picture here, it is, I believe, beluga caviar, which is one of the most expensive in the world. The global industry for the eggs is worth about hundreds of millions. And just as an example from Clayman from the New York Times, the best Russian Sevruga, the least expensive of the Caspian Sea caviars, is about $180 a pound. And on top of that, the caviar that from the sturgeon that are native to America is worth about $6 million for their industry is worth about $6 million. But because of this expensive pull, like discussed earlier when speaking about the First Nations of Canada, they have been overfished greatly, and it's led to a severe decline in their population.
Aww.
The sheer amount of money that can be made leads to these fish being, almost led to these fish being pushed into extinction. And as said by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, sturgeon can live up to 100 years and do not reproduce annually, which means they take years to recover from any population declines. They are a highly valuable group of species, with caviar from the beluga sturgeon, which is this caviar here, fetching up to about $10,000 US dollars for a kilogram. It leads to overfishing, both legal and illegal, of many of the species, which is a major threat to their survival. But in conclusion, sturgeon are a very interesting species of fish. Their appearance is unique, and they are gray. They're typically a gray color. They're fish that live in the northern hemisphere and are both saltwater and freshwater fish. They've existed on this planet for a very long time, to the pre-Jurassic period, to the mid-Jurassic period, but their evolution is unusually fast compared to other fish that once existed, that still exist from that time. They've had a very large impact on our global economy, and they have had a great impact on culture, ranging from the First Nations of North America all the way to our global economy. They are a fascinating species of fish that are a lot more than their eggs. However, those eggs are a very big part of their lure. Thank you for listening.